Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question, and this is actually a phenomenal question, and it's one I can't believe I haven't covered more on my channel. Jason, what intensity and volume do you recommend for supplementary exercises? In relation to the main lifts, it have to double the volume and same intensity, or what's your approach on that subject? I prescribe supplemental lifts personally, both for myself and for my coaching clients, are generally done with sets of 10. Unless we have a reason to deviate from that, we do sets of 10, and I do anywhere between 3 and 5 sets of 10. Now, the question will become, well, why, and how do we determine that volume? Well, that volume can be determined by your needs. In other words, I look at the total amount of recoverable volume a person has, both through their body and their localized. And so if your volume is very, very low on, say, your main lifts, and you need a lot of extra volume for a muscle group or a set of muscles, depending on what we're addressing with it, up to 5 sets. Right? We can do up to 5 sets. If you were approaching the maximum volume you can handle, or we're at that phase in your training, I might do as little as 3. But we could also undulate them through waves. In other words, I might have people run through a block. So let's say we're undulating even speed work in a 3-week wave, a pendulum wave. I might actually go 3, 4, and then 5 sets on a supplemental lift so that it gets harder through the wave. And then when we change modalities, we reset the volume on a supplemental lift. If it's a harder exercise, a really hard exercise, we might cut it off at 3 and try to build the volume. And if it's an easier exercise, we might just stick with 5 all the time. Right? The difference here is maybe additional box squatting, for example, whether it's with a safety bar or a barbell versus a really small exercise like a single joint exercise. You may not be able to handle the 5 sets of the big movement. Right? But we can handle 5 sets of tricep extensions. Right? You can handle 5 sets of tricep extensions. That's not an issue. So that's going to be the way we look at it in terms of total volume. I tend to stick with 10s because 10s is generally, unless we need, sometimes we can go heavier or lighter, but 10s is a good baseline. Why? Because it gives you good balance between at least the hypothetical, theoretical debate of myofibular versus sarcoplasmic growth. It's a good middle ground. It just gives you good all-around growth. It tends to be light enough that we can get a lot of training volume. We can get a lot of training volume. It gives us a good baseline on a wide variety of exercises. Most exercises we can do up to 10 without creating a massive amount of fatigue that we can't handle cardiovascularly. And it's good for not getting so heavy that we get joint and tendon issues on smaller exercises that might put us into unfavorable joint positions, like maybe a tricep extension. It's just a good baseline to work with. And that's where I start from, and then we work from there. Now, how heavy intensity needs to be within 1 to 2 reps of failure, right? Of course it does. Otherwise, we're just wasting. It's just junk volume. We need quality sets from those sets of 10, right? Quality sets. The lightest we would really want to go is maybe 2 reps from failure. And on some of them, if it's an easy to recover from exercise, we could take them all the way to failure, right? If it's a small movement, not a big deal. Again, a tricep extension versus a squat, right? That's the way to look at it. That's how I personally program and recommend supplementary movements as far as our accessory exercises go. That's just my general guidelines, and I think that works very, very well for myself, for my clients, and for a lot of people out there. And again, it's just a general set of guidelines. Those are not hard, fast rules. All right, next question. And this is from my main man, Louie, who's been a regular, long-time supporter and poster. How can there be all of these coaches who actually charge for services and they have absolutely no idea about training, gaining strength, or programming? Plus, a lot of coaches just put people on drugs and results come from that regardless. How can all these people be getting scammed that hard? Well, it comes over to the point of when people look purely at what someone looks like or the image that they put out on social media versus what they actually know or do, this exactly allows for it. This is why when we deal with the physique side of it, when you look at someone's physique versus their performance and their numbers, it can be misleading. Because physique is largely a product of genetics, body fat, and on top of it, drugs, right? That's your combination. Someone can have an extremely impressive physique if they just diet down really lean, have good genetics, and go on a bit of gear. And that can become impressive to people, or they just use gear to get where they are and they don't actually learn anything about training programming. And then they can sell services to the naive. They sell services to the naive. Instead of looking at what does this person know about performance, right? What do they know about performance? What do they know about training? Because that's the other thing people need to remember. Okay, so if you wanted a better physique, it is mainly about gaining muscle in the right places. Well, someone who understands programming and performance can put muscle on you in the right places too, if that becomes your goal. Not the goal of most of my clients. Some of my clients care about it. Some of them do. Some of them don't at all. Really an individual thing. So, again, it sets people up to be scammed when they look at the fact of, oh man, that guy looks great, so that's who I'm going to listen to. That's the unfortunate nature of the fitness industry. And people being obsessed with the aesthetic side of, they assume that aesthetics, which again, largely genetics and body fat, that's your combination, is the basis of knowledge. They must know what they're doing, that if I do what they do, I will look like them. It can be the same with strength coaches too, though, can't it? We all see those guys too. They don't know anything about programming. They don't know anything about programming. They run a bunch of gear and they just put their clients on a bunch of gear. Right? Just do a bunch of 12 rep sets of deadlifts, it'll be fine. Just a bunch of touch and go deadlifts for sets of 12s to failure. Yeah, we know coaches out there who do that. They throw their client on 750 tests and 500 deca every week, and they do that, they'll get jacked and strong. Now, they'll possibly get hurt. But again, it's an easy industry for people to get scammed in. And I spend a lot of time with trying to give my clients the best possible coaching. I have multiple clients who tell me I don't charge enough. I don't charge enough, actually. And there may come a point where, as I grow the business, I do charge more as I get a better reputation with it. Maybe some testimonials later when clients feel safe to come out and we don't have to deal with nonsense and trolling. Because my clients generally get pretty damn good results. And most of my clients are drug-free. The overwhelming majority are completely clean, lifetime clean. They get pretty good results. And a lot of them, even who want physique stuff, we improve that. Because they care about it, right? So, it's a reality of it is a flashy look, though. A lot of guys who offer really, really bad coaching services, and they charge a lot for it. They're out there. We see them. We know who they are. People get scammed because it's all about marketing. At the end of the day, it's marketing and glam versus actual substance and quality. And you know what? In a visual-based world, that can go a long way. That's what it is. All right, next question. What's the highest rep range you can build the most hypertrophy and strength? Is it 10 reps per set? Those are two very, very separate questions. I think 10 is a good middle ground. Okay, it's an upper threshold. For general hypertrophy, if you want it to carry over to strength, well. Does that mean with a smaller exercise you couldn't go higher? Maybe a tricep extension? No, you could. It'll still carry over to strength if it's a weak link for you. But only if that's a weak link for you. What's the highest rep range you can build the most strength? Singles. Okay, you get strong by practicing singles. Problem is, do singles develop maximum strength, or they teach you to display it? Because that's two different words. Singles cannot develop maximum strength. They will teach you how to display it. And you will never be able to display maximum strength at your fullest. So the word the most strength. Without doing singles, you will never get there with twos or threes. You have to do singles to give the maximum display of strength. But singles can't develop it. You need volume with that. Right? And I tend to think 10s kind of work pretty well for that. But that's the point I made earlier, talking about accessory movements and assistance movements and everything else. If people were to tell me if you could narrow it down to only doing 2 reps, well, I'm not saying you should. What will we do? I don't know. Singles and 10s. In other words, could you get all of your volume from 10s to build all the hypertrophy in the world you need? Yeah, you could do that. Could you do singles to develop your maximum strength? find all your weak points, sure, you can do that too. That worked pretty well, actually. Worked pretty well. Now, I think realistically, that's not practical. I think it would work if you were going to limit yourself, and I think that could be the basis of your training. But I think stuff like speed work needs a few reps, and that's its own topic. That's a totally separate topic as to why doubles and triples and things work for that. And I think there are cases where some smaller exercises just lend themselves to even higher reps. Face pulls, possibly triceps, things like that, you know. So it's not really set in stone like that. But if you were to ask me what's generally your best volume range, probably about 10. What's the best number of reps to do to develop and learn to display, would be the better word, maximum strength? Singles, right? But it's very nuanced from there. Those would be very, very, very loose guidelines. Very loose guidelines. They're not set in stone. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.